This is an overview of our 5-part series on the subject of understanding truck accident cases and how your personal injury lawyer can help you maximize the recovery that you're entitled to receive from the insurance company if you have been injured in a trucking or commercial vehicle accident. As this series will explain, there is many factors involved in a trucking accident case, and I'm going to give you details and terms that will be easy to understand, but just keep in mind that hiring an experienced law firm that has a long track record of handling truck accident cases will make the biggest difference with respect to your eventual outcome. Our law firm has been handling trucking accident cases for close to 40 years now, and we have a vast track record of navigating every single type of fact pattern you can imagine, and we've obtained substantial recoveries in these kind of cases, anywhere from $200,000 to close to $2 million, and just about everywhere in between. And I'll touch on some of the examples as we go and talk through this series. So in this initial overview, I'll cover each of the 5 parts that make up this series on the subject of commercial vehicle accidents, really from beginning to end. And here are those parts. So in part 1 of this series, I'll be covering an overview of 18-wheeler accident claims, which will be the introduction to trucking accidents, including the most common causes of 18-wheeler accidents, such as driver fatigue, mechanical failure, improper loading, and all the reasons these things happen. I'll cover an overview of the complexities of commercial vehicle collisions as compared to regular car accidents, which is a huge difference. I'll cover some of the key principles that everybody should just be aware of in these cases, and the importance of just knowing the legal framework of building a strong case in a trucking accident, including me explaining the federal and state regulations that govern both the trucking company and their drivers, with the biggest one being the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. This is commonly referred to by the acronym FMCSA regulations. And believe me, insurance companies that are required to pay damages in these cases are going to be the last people that would consider making you aware of many of these regulations that their insured drivers are required to comply with. Also in part 1, I'll dive into the details and talk about all the particular stakeholders in a trucking accident case, which are, among others, the trucking companies, their drivers, the insurance companies, and potential third parties. That can include manufacturers, maybe even maintenance companies. And then lastly, in part 1, I'm going to go into detail on the types of injuries you see victims typically suffer and their long-term impact, as well as the most common types of damages claims that you're entitled to obtain, such as medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, emotional distress, which you see a lot just because of the trauma of being involved in an accident with such a massive vehicle as an 18-wheeler tractor trailer. What will I cover in part 2 of this series? I'm going to talk about the importance of, and I'll give directions for the gathering of critical evidence early on in the case, where it's just so important to do that early and timely. We'll cover the accident scene and the way to go about preserving evidence from the location, the steps that you can take immediately post-accident, like taking photographs, witness statements, getting police reports, and then all the steps you can take to ensure that the accident is just properly documented. You've likely heard of the black box data, both in airplanes and 18-wheelers, and I'll talk about the importance of securing the truck's event data recorder, or ELD, which is just the electronic logging device data, and how important that is. And I'll talk about how to issue preservation letters to secure critical digital evidence that you're going to need, as well as providing samples of these preservation data letters for anybody that wants to download it from our website. I'll talk about the importance of obtaining maintenance and inspection records and how to review the truck's maintenance history and its potential impact on the case. This is just a critical piece of strategy when handling a trucking accident case, and it's amazing how obtaining this data can often increase the value of your case. And then lastly, in part 2 of the series, I'll talk about expert witnesses and accident reconstruction, the importance of hiring experts for accident reconstruction, and then using expert testimony to prove liability to enhance your claim. Then in part 3 of the series, I'll focus on maximizing liability and then proving negligence. Don't forget about that fact. In order to obtain a financial recovery, you're just going to have to prove that the truck driver or the trucking company in some way were liable or they did something wrong under the law. And that negligence is what caused you to be injured. So I'll go through the steps of establishing liability in a truck accident case and the legal theory of negligence and how it applies to truck drivers and trucking companies, and then how you can go about holding multiple parties accountable. Employer liability, independent contractor issues, etc. We'll cover trucking company violations, such as hours of service, hiring practices, lack of training, and how to take advantage of these regulatory violations to establish negligence. I'll cover key terms that you need to be aware of, such as vicarious liability and employer responsibility, which is basically where you would be proving that the trucking company is liable for the actions of its driver. The Latin term for that is adopted here in these situations. It's called respondeat superior doctrine. And then lastly, in part 4, I'll go through how to navigate the complex insurance policies, such as locating and sifting through the multiple layers of insurance coverage involved in these situations, dealing with self-insured trucking companies or large policy limit cases. And then next up in part 4 of the series, I'm going to be covering damages, both how to go about calculating those as well as maximizing those. This is what brings into focus the value of your case and what your case is likely going to be worth in terms of a monetary recovery. And there's just a long list of damages in a trucking accident case. And there are really 2 entire categories that you're entitled to recover for. First, there's economic damages, medical expenses, future medical bills, impairment ratings that we would get as a law firm from your doctor as we go forward. There's lost income, property damage, and the list goes on and on. Then there's non-economic damages. That's going to include pain and suffering, emotional distress, loss of companionship, even loss of consortium, where your spouse is entitled to a recovery even if they weren't involved in the accident. I'll go into detail about how medical experts and future medical expenses fit into your case and the role of medical experts in calculating long-term care needs and ongoing treatments. I'll cover the subject of punitive damages and gross negligence that comes up in these trucking cases and how to seek punitive damages in cases of egregious behavior. For instance, if there was gross negligence on behalf of the driver, or intoxicated drivers, or drivers that leave the scene of an accident. And then lastly, in part 4, I'll cover the basics of negotiating with insurance companies, some of the strategies for negotiating settlements to maximize recovery, and then also preparing for mediation or arbitration as a means to reach favorable settlements in these cases. And then the last part of the trucking accident series, part 5, I'll cover litigation and trial strategies for these trucking cases. And while it's very likely that you will have hired a truck accident law firm such as us to handle all the aspects of your case and to obtain a recovery for you, and the fact that most of these cases do settle well before the necessity of a trial, it's something that's good to know about. I often get questions from clients that were in a commercial vehicle accident, and they ask me just to walk them through the legal process. What does that look like? Just so that they can understand the procedures involved and how they can better navigate the case in its earliest stages. I'll talk about the basics of preparing for trial, building a compelling trial narrative. We start that early in the process. Developing visual aids and exhibits. Those might be accident reconstructions, medical illustrations, and the like. I'll cover deposition tactics and strategies for when we go on as a law firm to take the depositions of the trucking company representatives, their drivers, and experts that we hire, and how we can then just leverage those depositions to gain a strategic advantage and then pressure the defense into settling for a figure that's going to be better for us. We covered jury selection and how to present a case to a jury, just an outline of that, and then some insights for effective jury selection in trucking accident cases and how to present that evidence in clear and convincing manner. And then lastly, I'll go over any of the post-trial considerations or appeals, where we might be addressing some potential appeals that could happen in a case, and how we would want to make sure that we obtain the money for you and it's collected in a very timely manner after we settle or after a trial. So, as you can see, this will be a comprehensive series. I've felt the need to complete this series due to the complexities that are involved in a trucking accident case. These are much different cases than a typical auto accident case, and they require a law firm with a proven history of recoveries in commercial vehicle accidents. And we've focused a large part of our long history of this law firm and the representation of injured victims in tractor-trailer collisions. And I've covered this topic often in my weekly radio show. It's my goal to provide people with the resources that they need in an understandable format so that they can be better equipped to be able to navigate these life-altering situations such as this.